Good evening. I'm Ann Tovak, the CEO of the Workers' Circle. Welcome to tonight's program for Women and Girls Only, a conversation around the book by Jessica Rhoda with Malky Weingarten and Malky Goldman. The Workers' Circle is a Jewish social justice organization that builds progressive Jewish identity through cultural engagement, the promotion of Yiddish language and traditions, and social justice activism, all with the goal of inspiring collective engagement and impactful activism. Today, much of our work is focused on fighting wide-scale voter suppression in the United States by making sure everyone has a pathway to vote in 2024. Since our founding in 1900, our community has been committed to building a schönere und bessere Welt für alle, a better world for all. When we think of activism for world change, we tend to think of picket signs, marches, and rallies. However, in reality, activism happens in so many different ways. Today, we're exploring cultural activism by looking at our deep roots, Jewish roots in Jewish, Yiddish, and different traditions. I'm excited tonight to be looking at Jewish women's roles, community, and empowerment, both secular and Hasidic. Too often, Jewish women connect empowerment with secularity. Jessica Rhoda's new book helps us to re-examine and redefine the stereotypes of women in the Jewish world. And it provides concrete examples of Jewish women empowering each other and making the world around them a better place for all. Tonight, I'm going to be moderating a conversation with Jessica, Malky, and Malky, and we're going to leave time at the end for your questions. Please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A through the program, and we'll get to as many as we can. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Jessica Rhoda, an anthropologist and ethnomusicologist who has just published the book that we're discussing, For Women and Girls Only, Reshaping Jewish Orthodoxy Through the Arts in the Digital Age. Jessica is an assistant professor of Jewish civilization at Georgetown University's Walsh School of Foreign Service. And Jessica is going to introduce our two special guests, Malky Weinberg and Malky Goldman.
Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you for those words of introduction. I'm very happy, honored, delighted to have this amazing conversation with my two favorite Malkys in the global earth. First of all, Malky Goldman. So Malky Goldman is an actress. She's also an activist, board member of the Workers' Circle. She's very active in the film industry. She's a painter. She's an actress on stage, also on screen. You have seen her on a lot of different, feature movie, and also she's a film producer, a director. She has been director of different movies about different topics, and she's also a writer. Just to not forget any piece of Malky Goldman's fantastic work. She recently was performing for this horror movie called The Vigil, and also working behind the scenes. So she's always, if you have a chance, it's a Hasidic horror movie. One of the maybe we can talk about it a little bit later. So that's to present Malky Goldman. And also she was born in Jerusalem, in Meir Sherim. So she grew up in a Hasidic community in Meir Sherim, and she's navigate both worlds. And I write about her in my last chapter called The Public Artist. Now I'm going to introduce Malky Weingarten. Malky Weingarten is a filmmaker that I had a great pleasure to work with. She's also an actress in the community. She's also, I would say, an activist. I don't know if both of you would like me to use the term activist, but I see both of your work as making changes, and that's what I'm writing about in my book, within and outside the world. And Malky Weingarten, I had a privilege to collaborate with her in Borough Park within the Hasidic community. She creates and makes movie for Hasidic girls, and not only Hasidic, I would say Orthodox girls inside the community. She has also actresses, and she's creating movies that are bringing different topic and challenges for her universe. And she's also, if I may say, a performer, a dancer, and she's also painting. So another part also of both Malky's as artist. And I'm writing about Malky in my book in the chapter on the celebrity and also the influencer, but more specifically on the celebrity. And I'm going to stop here.
Okay, this is, I mean, it's an amazing a panel, all three of you, and so appropriate as we're as we're just past International Women's Day. So this is a really, I'm really excited to get into this conversation. I will tell everyone I had the incredible experience of reading for Women and Girls Only, and it really sort of opens, I think, so many topics. It opens one's mind around Jewish women, the stereotypes even Jewish women have of Jewish women inside and outside ultra Orthodoxy. And it paints a picture of so many vibrant and impactful women, who are using our culture to change the world. So this is such a perfect topic, I think, for the Workers' Circle, which is, of course, a primarily secular audience. And I think it's well worth examining as we move forward around the topic of cultural activism. So let me start by asking you, Jessica, first, for those who haven't yet read the book, for Women and Girls Only, it's a very powerful title. And I ask you both to speak about the book and explain to people what the title is meant to convey, and also who do you see the audience for this book?
Yes. So the title for Women and Girls Only has been inspired. I would like to do a shout out to Naomi Sedman, actually, a great scholar who is based at University of Toronto. I was struggling to think about a title. Initially was Beyond the Shaitel. And then we did a workshop in May 2022 about the book, and then suddenly, because everything was about a lot of the artists are labeling, and Malky Weingarten can talk about it. A lot of the product that are made for the community, for women in the community, are labeled for Women and Girls Only, and or sometimes called Isha if there is music, to make sure that the audience is oriented towards female audience. So I decided to use it. I thought it was just perfect. It was exactly what I needed, because even if the last chapter is also about public artists like Malky Goldman who are performing outside, this is also the centrality of women and the centrality of girls as well, in a certain, before the marriage. So this idea of the women as being at the center of the book, and it encapsulates really this experience of producing art where women are the center of the conversation. And also I would say that I can play with it, because my son likes to say, because I dedicate the book to him. They say, "Mom, I cannot read it. It's for women and girls only." And it's also kind of a little bit, this provocation, to provoke a little bit, because I know Malky Weingarten that this is not for provocation, but sometimes people are playing with it. Even some artists, male artists, who are listening and who sometimes are watching the consumption of this, they will play with that. So yeah, that would be my response, to put women at the center.
And is the book primarily for an academic audience?
So I think, yes, it is. But I try to write it in a lighter way. I would say certain chapters are lighter than others in terms of access. But this is, a contribution also to the literature in Jewish studies, in ethnomusicology, in gender studies, in religious studies. So this is an academic audience, but I really try to make it accessible to also the people who are, who helped me writing this book, and Malky Goldman and Marky Weingarten. So this is really, that's why I'm very happy to have this conversation, because this is a conversation also with artists themselves. So this is primary audience. Yeah, and I would say that the Jewish audience is so broad that in general, when, and remember that was what the publisher said, that they know that the Jewish audience is really kind of very interesting by this kind of those books that are able to go beyond just the academic circle.
I do want to second that. I'm not an academic, and I found the book compelling chapter by chapter. And as someone who is very much calls themselves an activist, it opens up the opportunity or an experience of really thinking about Jewish women in a different way. It really explores this idea of Jewish women's empowerment that goes beyond secular and through ultra orthodoxy. So I recommend it to everyone who's watching, and just to give it a plug, it is available as an ebook online, which that's how I wound up reading it through my Kindle. It's very easy to obtain, and I think it will give you a great introduction to the wider world of Jewish women, and then you can explore different projects for yourself. For example, Malky Weingarten is a filmmaker, and her movies, while not available on any of the streaming platforms that most of us are subscribed to, I was able to find her movies through a special streaming platform, and we are going to share it with the audience here. And your book, even if I hadn't, had a preview, I would have searched for your movies, Malky, and I think it's a wonderful introduction to get to also to look at art that may not be readily available to the secular community, but really is eye-opening and not just entertaining, but gives you another view of the world and how problems that we all experience are being dealt with. So, with that being said, I'm going to ask you, Malky Weingarten. I'm going to just keep using your last names of the two incredible Malkys. How about giving us an introduction to the movies you're making, and tell us a bit about where these movies are in the ultra orthodox world, and what your work looks to achieve.
Okay, great. So to sum it up, I'll start by saying I call myself an FFF, which is a Frum female filmmaker. So there aren't too many Frum, which means religious, Orthodox filmmakers. There are fewer female ones. So I guess that's a little bit of a novelty in our community. I create content for the women and girls in my community who are trying to be careful with what they watch, and they don't want their kids to see everything. So that's what I do. I'll say that, even my own kids, I have 5 daughters. I didn't want them to just see anything. So I would have to look through the stuff that they watched to make sure that it was kosher, and I didn't know what they were watching, what effect it would have on them. And I was always concerned about it. I would let them watch things because you can't say no to everything. But, if it was something from someone who I knew to be, Orthodox, or, then I didn't even ask any questions. I was just like, yeah, okay, you can watch that. That's fine. So I know that since I started making films, women are telling me that you know, if it has my name on it, they're comfortable with it. They just let their kids watch it. They don't have to worry what it is. They know there's no violence in there. There's no bad language or, you know, um, so that's in a nutshell what I do.
I want to follow up because maybe for some people watching, they'll, when you talk about it being kosher, something you don't do is shy away from difficult topics. I was sharing just 2 nights ago, I watched your movie Hush Hush, which in a very frank way deals with the problem of mental illness in this case the ultra orthodox community, but there were many moments where I could relate to it in my community too. It's not something that's always easy to deal with. So if you want to speak about that, and then another movie I was looking at dealt with mental disability, you know, and a life of someone with some limitations who was leading a very full life in a community that didn't always know how to respond to it,
Right.
welcome or otherwise. So maybe you want to talk. You could talk a little bit about that and how you're coming up with these topics that aren't easy, but are being very compassionate. They're very compassionately dealt with in your movies, but also in a somewhat realistic way. They don't. You're not shying away from the hard conversations.
Right. So when I tell people that, you know, my movies don't have any bad language, there's no violence, no sex scenes, they're like, so what? So what are you making movies about? Like what's left? So I say I like to generalize it by saying that I do human topics. I deal with just plain human topics that anybody can relate to. We're talking about anything we're struggling with in our communities. And what we're struggling with in our communities is all over, except that I feel like some things in our community are a bigger stereotype than any place else. And the challenges with our we're more concerned about what everybody thinks about us than the rest of the world, you know. Everyone is concerned about what people think about them. We're like that. We just are. But in our community, I feel like it's a thousandfold. And therefore people are not being open about stuff that needs fixing in our community. And so I feel like I want to talk about it. Let's talk about it, you know. And when I did this about this movie about the girl with special needs, I was inspired to write about that because I have a son who is on the spectrum, and he, um, I felt very hurt when people would hurt him, and I felt like people aren't aware that kids that are a little bit different have feelings. And I said, okay, so I'm going to make a movie about it. I don't know if I'm changing the world, but whoever watches it might be changed. And I will tell you that I've had people come over to me and tell me that their daughter told them that since they watched Molly, there's a girl in their class, and now they know how to talk to her. They didn't know how to handle her, like she was different, so they didn't know what to do. And there's a girl in their class that's just like Molly. And since they watched Molly, you know, and people tell me all the time. So the feedback that I get is so amazing. But I didn't have such opposition to that. But when I said I want to do a film about mental illness, my distributor, who distributes my movies, said, Malky, no one's buying it. I don't suggest you do that at all. I think that you're not going to make a penny. I mean, and she's a distributor and she's trying to make money. So for her, it was about money. For me, it's not. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. It's not about money for me. I don't really care. She's like, Malky, come on. You can't keep making movies and not making money. I'm like, I know, but what drives me is not the money. The money, if it comes in, yippee do. And if it doesn't come in, it's fine. I want to inspire people. That's what drives me. So I'm going to do this movie. And so she said, Malky, I would not let my kid watch it. And who are you marketing this to? Your biggest market is the younger girls. Why would a mother want to let her kid watch something about mental illness? I said, because it exists. So she says, but why should we open their eyes? Why should they have to know about it? What's if a girl doesn't know anything about mental illness? Why should she have to talk about it? I said, she may not know about it, but what's if it hits her? what's if it hits her in the face in a few years? She may be 14 and but then when she's 17, she's feeling anxious, depressed, or whatever, and she doesn't know what hit her, and she's thinking there's something wrong with her, but she won't think there's something wrong with her if it's a topic that people talk about, and she knows other people will have it because they talk about it. And she said, Malky, I'm just telling you now, I am not distributing it. I'm not wasting my time, and I don't suggest you waste your time. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I have to say that even I was shocked. Even I was shocked at the feedback. Even I was shocked at how many people were so thankful for this. And just so you know, and not because this makes a difference, but it made the most money from all my movies. From every single movie I had done till then, it beat every single one of them. And the Mollies did really well. And it beat them all. And I still get emails from people constantly, constant emails of people saying, Malky, you don't know what you did with this movie. I'm not ready to have my name put anywhere. I'm suffering from mental illness. Yes, I am in the community. Yes, I'm still worried about the stigma. So maybe you didn't change that for me, but what you did change was me feeling like I'm not alone. And I can cry when I say this. I can't even tell you how many people reached out to me to say, Malky, you don't know what you did for me. And they're still saying, please don't say my name anywhere. But I still was able to make their life this much better because they know that somewhere, someplace in our community, people are finally starting to talk about it so they don't have to hide. And the reason I made that movie, just so you know, because I'm taking up too much time, but I'll just make this very quick, was because a very close family member who I can't talk about because it's not my place to say her story because she's not ready to speak about it openly, and a very close friend of mine were suffering so bad. And biggest and the most painful part was they had no one to talk to. They didn't even admit it to their own self. They didn't call it mental illness. They called it everything else. I'm having a lot of pressure right now. I have to go to the hospital because of this and that. They gave it all kinds of names, but they couldn't say out of their mouths mental illness because it was such a terrible thing. And they were so afraid of the stigma for themselves even. And they had no one to talk to, nobody to talk to, the loneliness. And I said, okay, we're changing that. So is the stigma still around in our community? Yes, it is. Have I made some people's lives easier because of it? Probably. So I'm not sure what the question was originally, but I went off on a tangent. So
It was
forgive me.
it was a wonderful tangent. I was really looking for the impact on your community, and I felt it watching the movies called Hush Hush. And I just, as I was watching it, I kept thinking there's all these series of commercials on television these days encouraging people to seek out help who need it. And I thought of that as I was watching Hush Hush because it's not limited to an ultra Orthodox community. There's still a lot of people who don't want to seek help when they really, it would make their lives very different and it's needed. So the fact that there's all these advertisements on TV and on podcasts saying like, reach out if you need help. There's no, there shouldn't be a stigma. I mean, this is a universal issue. And I thought your movie responded to it with such compassion and also didn't shy away from the challenges. So it's fascinating to hear. I'm sure it should be a whole conversation in itself. But I'll turn to Malky Goldman, who is featured in. I wanted to give the title of the chapter. It's The Public Artist: Legitimizing Hasidicness, Diversifying Jewishness. I think it would be really interesting for you to begin by talking about your background in both the secular and in the ultra-Orthodox worlds.
Sure. Hi, I am Malky Goldman, the other Malky. I'm thinking how to make this shorter. I grew up in Orthodox family in Jerusalem, ultra-Orthodox, a group called Hasidim. And I had an extremely happy childhood. Definitely felt happy and in a very expressive home with lots of music and love and food and all the good stuff. And I did find myself expressing some otherness in art and painting. In a young age, I got obsessed with drawing and painting, which was very admired in my community, in my family, and of course it also helped with me being quiet, so that was great. And then as I got older, I started teaching painting, which was not the greatest thing. Everyone wants their daughter to be a good artist, but being an art teacher might be not so good. But also it was fine. It wasn't too bad. But eventually the community had too many restrictions for my personality, for my individuality. So I found myself years later, when we moved to New York, having left the community. And once I left the community, I continued with the teaching, the exploration and painting. And then I have realized how much I loved performing. I grew up in a big family and we always performed every Saturday, every Shabbos. We had, the siblings would make a play and we would have these performative space to express ourselves. So when I left, I had the desire to do that in a world that I could. In my community, in ultra-Orthodox community, women could express themselves, but quite limited. It's like the book for women can only perform for women and girls, which is fine. For me, it was just too little. I guess I wanted more. So I have gotten to do some movies, mainstream movies, some plays, which I love to perform, and took the elements of what I've learned from growing up, the joy, the laughter, the music. I don't sing, but I love to listen to music, and to the life that I have today. And I do want to say that if you read Jessica's book, you'd be surprised how much I am still connected. I still go back to teach many girls in the community painting, because of how much I loved having an art teacher. I want to give this to other future me's or anyone that wants to express themselves. So I have a beautiful space where I teach Hasidic Orthodox girls painting. I do not teach them about my acting world. I keep this for women and anyone else, but this is just a little bit of myself.
Yeah, I'm really privileged to be friends with Malki and to work with her at the Workers Circle. But I hadn't realized until I read the book how much you've continued the relationship inside and outside the ultra-Orthodox community. I'm interested, since you still have the connections, which, by the way, is in some way is really in opposition to many stereotypes that make it sound as if you can either be inside or outside. And that was one area that Jessica's book really underscores, that this is a community that has many different places to be a part of, and I think you were a wonderful example of fighting one of the of discounting one of these stereotypes of not being able to reconnect or stay connected. Can you talk a little bit about about the women that you see inside versus the secular women, and how do you experience these two communities of women and empowerment?
Of course. So yes, I am able to balance both, which is not easy. We all have to turn a blind eye. My students or my family members know not to ask me personal questions. I am very much aware how much I can talk about, or sometimes something as simple as just expressing a way of drawing in a not so modest way could be a little troubling. Those are little things to remember. But what I feel is something different, and the things that I'm experiencing in the separate world is, let's talk about the Orthodox community. What I'm aware is there is humans are humans, and there are people with feelings and who want to express themselves and paint and do art. And as long as I will have a group of people that are so happy and feel so strong and empowered, because they are fitting within the system. So therefore, this painting is just an extension of themselves, and they don't have the need to have a huge exhibition in the MoMA, or the feeling doesn't go more than I want to express myself right here, right now, and maybe bring home a nice painting to make someone proud. But I will have groups that are dreaming about this life outside of, and they would be like, oh, this painting, I wish I could talk about this. I wish so the balance of being in the right place in the right time is what I would say. And I feel that with people I work with in the secular community as well. I mean, let's talk about women in, I don't know, kindergarten. I'm sure that they feel very good, but once you're in finance or you are in the art and the acting industry, producers and actors, and then suddenly you start feeling like, I wish I could have that bigger, wider place to express myself. So there is still an oppression of some sort. And if you want this much, then you can find your place and happiness where you are. But when you want that much, there's always some limitation. So there is a certain joy of a Hasidic or Orthodox group that have a life with meaning and think that everything they do is for the sake of a God, and then also get to have some fun. So that's great, and that sometimes makes me so happy. But once that God is lost for you, I think there is this feeling of wanting more. And these are almost my students that I favor, because I feel like I can give them that little more that isn't available, that little more that you're not supposed to. And that's why I am the one that is going back to teach them. But I also, I compromise. I put on a dress. I will not walk in with jeans. So we make it happen. We make it work, but it's worth it.
Malki, as you were speaking just now, and you were talking about finding happiness in the midst of limitations, I think that actually applies to all of us, because for example, your example of having, the goal of having your work hang in MoMA, it's real, but only about a quarter of probably 1% even have a shot. So much of art and writing and acting is about finding satisfaction within our world, whatever that may be, right? In the ultra-Orthodox community, it's one, there's one place, but we have it. I think we all have it.
I have to say, but the dream of dreaming big is often something nice to have. So yes, depending how far your dreams are is where your limitation of your
that's a great point. And that leads me to sort of a question for everyone, and I'm going to ask Jessica to lead off the answer, which is, I wanted us to really look at cultural activism. And I ask this very much because Jessica has been working with the Worker Circle, as has Malki Goldman, on a series where we're looking to define what cultural activism, art and culture to change the world around us in different ways. So how do each of you, do you look at using art to change the world? And does cultural activism resonate with you? And I'll start with you, Jessica.
Yes. So I used to be a pianist, and I used to perform a long time ago. I don't perform anymore, but I feel that my heart through the arts now, it's much more through the writing and also education, through the arts. The arts is always kind of at the heart of my work. I think through the arts there is this potentiality and to challenge narratives, and this is at the core. Whatever you are, doesn't matter the type of support that you're using, but this is, so when you think about activism, this is also changing narratives and going back to what Malky Goldman said, also thinking beyond what you have around you and dreaming sometimes about what you have around you. And I think it's starting at the point where you dream about a potential change. I mean, activism is about making changes. And I really think about making changes around you, just, in a small space, just to, if you can make people think differently a little bit through whatever is your support, as I said, is a form of, cultural activism. And yes, in general, this is this idea that you use also a very subjective discourse about what are the changes that you want to make, the political activism. But I think sometimes through culture or through the art, there is something that is not as obvious, but that gives much more space to certain creativity and individuality and also communality, that the traditional, political space, and also creating possibilities that are sometimes, if you think about politics, it's just, I'm working a lot, for instance, on Jewish and Muslim relationship, and I was behind a lot of different projects to create bridges to support artists. And I think what we are trying to do also now, is creating opportunities where different worlds are in contact and in dialogue, even if they disagree with each other. And this is, what my book is trying to do, and to create opportunities for that.
Nice. And Malky Weingarten, I'm curious, does cultural activism, is that a term that you're using? Do you consider yourself an activist versus a filmmaker and a filmmaker? Please.
Right. So I'm not 100% sure what that question means, but maybe I can rephrase it and you tell me if that's what it means. Cultural as in the arts, or
using arts to change the world. Do you agree with that, Jessica? I'll ask you, because you've been something of a guru to me, a light, as we've defined it.
And of course the connotation of using the term activism, and some people will, so that's why there is always is it the term that the person or the artist will use, because some also artists will not want to, they don't have, and actually to not have any political stand, just using the art to make changes,
right.
Then it depends on how you look at it, but that's the kind of the conversation that we wanted to have, what it means when also the person or the artist doesn't want, and it's, it's I think it's
yeah. So I do tell I feel like I am making a difference, especially in my community, because I tell the women, any woman that will just listen to me, when they say things like, I used to dance, or I used to sing, I have kids now, and it's like I'm yelling from the rooftops, please, guys, listen to me. Just because you got married, you moved on, and you had kids doesn't mean you lose yourself. You are your own person. You have talents. You have ways of expressing yourself. And some women are using their talents in the community, and some women are just frustrated. They're frustrated because they think it's over. They think that once you get married and you have kids, you're a mother. And I keep saying, I'm a mother. And you can still do, it's okay. And it's healthy for your kids to see that you are a person with things that excite you. You have hobbies. You have things. You're also a person. So. It's hard for the women to hear it, but so many women have said that, I've made a difference. Whenever I get up to speak, or whenever I have an opportunity to speak to a large group of women, I'm practically yelling at them. Don't come to me and tell me you used to sing, or you used to dance. No such a thing. It doesn't end when you get married and you have kids. I always say that. I was hired to do an event in England, in London, So they got all the women together to meet me because I'm a bit of a celebrity and they never get to see me because they're all the way in London and I'm in New York. So part of what I wanted to tell them was, you have talent, you can do it. And some women in the audience asked me, can you come here? Can you make a movie here? I said, no, you have talent. You have a bunch of women sitting in this audience that have talent. Come on, make it happen. Get yourself up, create a stage performance, create a movie. Come on. What are you waiting for? Ain't no one going to do it for you. You know, it was like what I tell them. When I realized that I want to act and there isn't enough opportunity, I said, okay, enough. I want to act. I'm going to make it happen. So I created opportunity, you know. So I guess you could say that that might answer your question. Is it making a
I
difference in
think
the whole
so.
entire world? Maybe not, but I feel like in my community, I'm making little holes
I
moving
think
paper to
it
drop.
I think it does. I think it's like spot on to what cultural activism. Just to sort of define a little bit more, at the Workers' Circle, we have many people who immerse themselves in our Yiddish, and the idea that they would then use the Yiddish to improve, to make the world better and different, is in part what has inspired us. So Malky Goldman, I'm going to turn to you to answer this question.
Yes, the term cultural activism is something I spend a lot of time thinking about and I'm quite passionate about. I can't say I know what it is, but I know I can say what I feel, what it feels to me. And I think that there is a need in humanity of culture or community of some sort. And often people are looking for the sense of belonging or sense of what's my culture. And then by searching for that, you're trying to look for that deeper meaning, and then many times it ends up with finding some sort of a God that many times comes with multiple restrictions, and that wanting to connect and that wanting to belong might end up becoming something, some sort of a religious restriction or religious belonging. What I think, what I want cultural activism to be, is I want that extra that we're looking for beyond this culture, beyond these cultural things that we are wanting, we beyond the culture, beyond the community that we're looking for. I want us to find that otherness through art, so that we are fulfilled without the negativity. I won't say negativity. I will be sensitive to someone that it's positive, but without having rules and norms of a God that is so far away from us that won't give us the answer. I want us to find the answers and the deeper satisfaction through art, if possible.
Yeah. Well, there's always we never know for sure. There's no ultimate success, in my view,
Yeah,
for activism. It's a lifelong commitment to lifelong change,
yeah,
to world change. So
and I'll say
I
one
think,
more thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes after a beautiful concert or a beautiful show, an art show, a play, a film, there is this awe.
Yeah.
There is this feeling of connection, of belonging, of I'm not alone. And this is what I think I'm running after. This is what I feel like I want.
Yes, I love that. I love that analogy, and I've experienced. I hope we all have had the chance to experience those moments where you feel like it's as close to a perfect moment as we get. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about your book, and I'm watching the time because I do want to give people a chance to ask some questions. But Jessica, I don't want to end our Q&A, our discussion here, without talking a bit about your book and the theme of fighting the stereotype of disempowered women in the ultra Orthodox community. I was you definitely make the case. I think you show us empowerment in the ultra Orthodox community, women's strong community. Are there strengths that in the ultra Orthodox community that you think the secular community should be learning and from the ultra Orthodox women? And are there strengths in the secular community that could also be equally empowering to the ultra Orthodox women's world? So if a small question, if there is.
Yes, this is such a difficult question. I think I will respond in a different way to your question.
Okay.
Because, I'm situating myself as a Jewish liberal woman who wrote a book about, all so it's about the empowerment inside and outside, but also about the struggle inside and outside, about this idea of what exactly it means when you want to do something and you want to make changes, I would say. And it doesn't matter where you want to make changes. And it goes back to this idea, what are the possibility and the implications about the risk, in the last chapter about Malky Goldman, I talk about the public dilemma. I talk about this idea of what are the dilemma in terms of if you decide to go there or to not go there. And I think it's the same thing with Malky Weingarten in the chapter about the celebrity, where I talk about the implication of, in certain cases when, she decided to make those movies or to act, what are the different implications for the schools, for the kids, for instance, or how you're going to be perceived. And so I think it's at so many different levels. And the specificity of what it means to be a woman and to change the positionality that we have as, if we're mothers, if we're not mothers, which type of women we are in our own system and how do we fit or we do not fit in. And at so many different levels, and all the women that I'm writing about, in the book, and myself included, I love this idea of the, Malky Weingarten. Remember when we first met, you said, I grew up in a typical, family where we all spoke Yiddish, and I'm not this typical Hasidic lady, I'm not this typical Hasidic lady. And Malky Goldman never said it, but I remember, actually in the chapter, I said, she said once, as people living in South, being outside, she grew up Hasidic. She has this culture, she speaks Yiddish. So this is her, and in the chapter starts, I'm Hasidic. I will always be, if this kind of understanding of this as being cultural. And so I think maybe if we want to think about empowerment and in this world and that word is maybe thinking about the potential dialogue. I learn a lot in both cases. I learn a lot and how, much more similarities that sometimes we have. Is it because of this book is about the arts? And I ask that in the introduction. Is it because this is through the lens of the arts? Or is it also because this is about the lens of being women and not necessarily trying to push the boundaries and to not fit in?
So that actually leads me to a final question, which I wanted to put forward. But first, I just want to ask if anyone in the audience wants to ask a question, if you can put it in either the chat or the Q&A, and we'll try and get to it before we close. Are there opportunities for our communities, secular and ultra-Orthodox women, to be getting together? Are there examples of where it's happening today? And so I thought, because in reading your book, I saw such wonderful examples of women-only communities who are empowering each other in the ultra-Orthodox world. And of course, women in the secular world are also seeking opportunities to find strength and empowerment, particularly in these times when we're seeing rights and and liberties that we thought were, that we had held close, um, being attacked by the government. So, are there, Jessica? Do you see it? And then I'll go to Malky Weingarten and Malky Goldman.
Yeah, so I think, at the individual level, I see a lot of kind of, contact of, and both of Malkys can talk about the friends that they have or their family members, sisters, and, with whom they are still, in contact with, and also women who are outside, and, this overlap at the individual level. Thinking about community, even there is, I'm thinking interestingly to the words of healing, which is an interesting place lately that I've discovered, where interestingly you have a lot of overlap between liberal and Orthodox women. Chabad is very fascinating in creating those kind of opportunities. And I'm thinking about the work of Hannah Raskin, the Rada Circle, through the lens of music. Actually, she's doing that as well, where you go to the spaces. And I remember there was an event in November where, I was there and a lot of other liberal women were there, but also, women from Borough Park, but also from Chabad. So kind of those community that are where you have women, and sometimes also it's mixed gendered, where you have people from multiple communities encountering, where they are searching to go beyond what is, the opportunities. In terms of rights, that could be, yeah, that's a good question. I don't see, there are different types of fight, because they don't live in the same world.
Sure.
And political agenda and vision as well, but yeah.
So I'm going to go to Malky Weingarten, and Malky, are there opportunities where you are connecting with others? Like today is a great example. But are there are opportunities for the secular world and the ultra-Orthodox world of women to connect and empower each other? And before we close, I'm also hoping, can you just define and explain why your movies have the term for women and girls only on them? Because not everyone may know why they might.
Right. A lot of people don't understand what that really means.
Yeah.
As part of modesty, the women and girls in the Orthodox community like to limit who's watching them. That's why they're not on social media and they're not on a lot of these platforms, even though I am a little bit out of the box. But a lot of the women in my community, even if they do have Instagram and they like to follow some people, they won't show their faces. It's because, some of them are afraid of what the community is going to think about them if they find out. But some are really just, they don't like their face all over, and it's part of the modesty thing. So, modesty can be defined in many different ways. Some people think modesty means just what you're wearing, but some people believe that modesty goes above that. And, you shouldn't be watched and looked at by men. So the women and the girls, most of them, not all of them, in my movie are concerned about staying what they call kosher, and only women and girls should be watching them. That's why they wouldn't get on a stage in front of a mixed audience. They wouldn't, they're careful about who's watching them. So that's why I write on the movies that this was created for my viewers who are looking. You got, like they say, you got to know your clientele, you got to know your people. My community,
Yes.
This is what they're looking for. And in addition, the women and the girls in my films ask this. This is what they would like. They would like to know that they don't need to worry about who's watching them. So I help them to keep it, so this is what we do. We write on it for women and girls only. We don't stream it on public platforms. I won't, it doesn't, you're not going to find it on Netflix or any of these platforms, but it is on my distributor's website, and my distributor distributes Jewish movies and Jewish music, kosher, not kosher necessarily only, but all kinds of Jewish different types. If you look at Nigun, Nigun music.com is where all my movies are. So we're marketing to an ultra-Orthodox crowd primarily. And so we imagine that if it says on it for women and girls only, then the women and you know, that's what we're marketing it as. That, you know, not to say that there aren't any men who watch it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know that there probably are. You know, I've had that, but so that's what it means for women and girls only. You know, it's like we write that on the thing, and then, you know, we feel like we're selling it to that type of audience, and that should work. In terms of how we can bridge the gap, or how well, not everybody on my movie is from the community. I work with many different ethnicities and different actresses from different walks of life from all over. A cute little story. I have an adorable African American actress that I work with. I love her, and she's on quite a few of my films. She said she was on, like, when she tells people that she's in the Orthodox films, they have no idea what she's talking about. So she was on an airplane once, and this girl was passing by. She looked like one, you know, a girl from our community, but she didn't know. She was wondering why she was looking at her. She passes by again, and she was on an airplane going to Texas. This girl kept stopping and looking at her, and finally she had the, you know, she was able to say, "Is it okay if I ask you, but I don't know if I could be totally wrong, but are you on any movies?" And she said, "What? You saw me on a movie?" She was like, "Wow, look at that. I'm a celebrity." So, I don't know if that answered your question, but
we'll keep, I mean, I think there's moments where we have a chance to be together and we all benefit from it. And by the way, one person had a comment about klezmer a music concert, and I know that the Workers' Circle has participated in concerts at I believe it's at the Eldred Street Museum, where it has been for women only, and it's opened up the opportunity for women artists in the ultra-Orthodox world to play. And there was a lot of conversation about, you know, participating, because of course we encourage everyone to participate. We're a welcoming society, but in this case, the decision was made that to participate and give an opportunity for women artists to come together and celebrate together and play together. So Malki, I think you have, if you can speak to this idea of the secular and the ultra-Orthodox community empowering each other. And then Jessica, I'd like you to, you know, have the last word, because we're just at time.
Of course, it is a dream to do that. It's a little bit more complicated to have Orthodox women to come and participate with a secular audience because of the modesty reason, which Malki mentioned. Women should not be performing for men or singing in an audience where men would be. So, but my friend Melissa Weiss and we wrote a play together, and it's about Orthodox women, and we really have this dream to put the play up in an Orthodox community, played by Orthodox women, or a variety of us and Orthodox women, for women and girls only. So it's a dream, it's a hope, but it for sure becomes more complicated going back to the restrictions. If I put on a modest dress, of course I can go and be in Malki's movie, but if Malki comes, she can wear 7 modest dresses. If culturally she should not perform with a man. And I should also mention that Malki's films are not only for women and girls only, it's also played by women and girls only. So
yes.
Shout out to feminism, Malki. But it's a dream and a hope, and a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, and Jessica, any final sort of wrap up? We've really gone through many topics, so.
No, I mean, that's wonderful. I just wanted to thank you and to thank both Malki to trust me from the beginning of this project and to develop this friendship, and more than friendship, Malky Goldman knows pretty well. And I write about it in the introduction, how this book changed me, reshaped me, and create amazing adventures to transcend borders, to transcend universes, and also to find a connection, even if, I grew up in French Guiana, I grew up very far from Hasidic Mea Shearim and the OTD community, or Borough Park, or Montreal, and to be able to create those ties has been incredible. If we think about women's empowerment, because we're also in the moment of the month of Women's History, right? So
I think so. Yes,
yeah.
we're March.
Yes.
This year is going very quickly.
Exactly. And I would like to thank you, Anne, also for organizing this great discussion and panel. And that's
And I want to thank you, Jessica and Malky. I love the book, and I love this opportunity to start conversations about different communities of women, and how we each bring really special knowledge and engagement and activism to the table. So thank you all, and and everyone who's watching this, and I know many people watch after what we'll be posting. We send a link to everyone who signs up. We'll also send. Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, the only thing that I wanted to add is that
please.
there is always a lot of struggle, and nothing is, at all our different levels, and to never give up.
Good. That is a perfect end, perfect final word. And I'll just say that tomorrow we'll send links to the book, to the movies, and I hope everyone keeps exploring, and I hope we'll have more opportunities to talk and explore these feminist worlds together. So thank you all, and thank everyone for joining us, and have a wonderful night. And as I